Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Clarence Johnson III here. I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Talking Music. And we glad to be back after the last week's technical difficulties, but you know, that's how sometimes things go in this digital world that we live in. But we are back, and certainly glad to be back here, coming to you live from New Orleans, Louisiana. And we've had a number of great guests on the show the past few episodes, including instrumentalist and arranger, great keyboard player Mike Esnote, all the way to Washington, D.C. to visit with percussionist extraordinaire Leon Alexander. We talked our last episode was with Mr. Derek Doge, saxophonist, with the late, great Ellis Marsalis Quintet. And tonight, it brings me great pleasure to bring you our next musician. He's a giant. He is an absolute giant in the music field. And this gentleman is like my musical uncle. There's a couple of stories from way back in the day. I'm not even sure if he remembers, you know, when we first met. We first met at some studio. Oh, gosh. Let's see. How old am I? About 30 years ago at a studio on like the top floor of Canal Place on Canal Street. I don't even know if he remembers that. His reputation had already preceded him. And, you know, when I was, you know, high school, getting into college, I heard about this bass player that was, you know, a monster. And, you know, if you ever get a chance to hear him, you kind of take you back. And, you know, so, you know, I always had that in the back of my mind. And when I finally got a chance to see him in person, I'm like, man, so this is what they were talking about. And finally got a chance to introduce myself to him many years later, because he was in a session. So he don't, you know, I couldn't really talk to him then. But many years later, I introduced myself to him, and we started doing some jobs, and he started calling me on some things. And it turned into a working relationship throughout the decades that had me playing with quite a few of his bands and projects, and had him on a few of my projects and albums and recordings. And it just turned into a very beautiful musical friendship, partnership, and relationship. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to welcome to Talking Music. How about it for Mr. Chris Severin, ladies and gentlemen?
How y'all doing? How y'all doing?
Yeah, you're right, bro. What's going on with yourself, bro?
Just trying to keep the wheels turning, that's all, you know. Every time they start to moving, the brakes, if somebody pull on the brakes. So, you know, now we back to what we were dealing with.
Yeah.
And
last year.
Yeah.
So
seemed like forever.
Right. And just to give a little more context, we're talking about some unfortunate news that we received in the New Orleans area. Quite a few big events, unfortunately, have been canceled for the second year in a row. We're talking about one of the biggest, New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, that was supposed to take place with their rescheduled dates in October. But due to the crazy numbers, had to pull back on that again. A couple other things got messed over, including Gretna Fest, a couple other things. We're still holding out hope. I don't know how much hope. we still holding out hope for the French Quarter Fest. They haven't made a decision yet.
Yeah, well, yeah, that is the only thing left. Right.
Pretty much.
I had a beautiful calendar until last week. You know, it's got all kind of holes in it now.
Yeah.
It's always challenging. I mean, I had a gig just yesterday at the Mint. So the Mint is holding out, I guess, because it's a small audience.
Right.
And it is outdoors.
And I think possibly that could be one of the few things that the French Quarter Fest is holding out for, because unlike Jazz Fest, the French Quarter Fest is set up completely outdoors. Now, I don't know if that's going to make a difference or not, because we're talking about crowds gathered in pretty closely. So we'll just have to see how the numbers look in September for them to, make a decision, man.
Yeah, well, that's all we can do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not surprised for some reason that the Jazz Fest pulled out, or was going to pull out at the first sign of, this multiplying of this virus that we're dealing with. I'm just not surprised, I guess. People are really, really close together at the festival. So I can understand, why they made some of the moves they made.
Right. Well, man, so you are a legend on the music scene, both here and internationally, on the bass. And so just want to kind of talk to you and see what's happening and see how you got started in this thing, man. From what I can remember, you prepped at John McDonough High School. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. I was a Trojan. We don't have our school anymore. It's elementary school for some reason. But yeah, I went to John McDonough.
And from there, one of your first educational experiences in the music was having a chance to attend New Orleans Center for Creative Arts.
Right. Well, even before that, I was already working with, a group that Alvin Baptiste started. He calls it the Adolescents. We were like 9th grade. And that was right before I think the concept got started for the NOCCA program. Alvin Baptiste was already doing things like that at Beauregard Junior High School, coming down from Southern with people like Herbert Jackson, Julius Farmer, Ray Mouton, Charlie Singleton, Henry Butler.
Yeah.
A lot of great musicians. So I think that switch was already on in terms of a school like NOCCA being developed.
Awesome. What led you to choose the bass?
Well, I grew up in a family of all drummers. My dad was a drummer. My oldest brother was a drummer. And my other 2 brothers were drummers. Vernon, of course, people know him. But my brother Gerald was a drummer. My oldest brother, they call him Papa. His name is Wilfred Severin. He was junior. He was a drummer. And, I guess drums was, I think my mom was kind of fed up with drums in the household, you know what I'm saying, at that point. And the first time I had mentioned the guitar, I had gotten one for Christmas.
Yeah.
It was that automatic. I guess they just didn't want to hear any more drums in the house. So that's how the guitar came about. And then my brother-in-law, Fred Tuckerson, he was a bassist. He was with a group called the Del Reys.
Okay.
And, I was always around. My oldest brother was in that band before it was called the Del Reys. They were the astronauts where Warner Williams was in the band. People like that. So I was always around musicians. It was kind of like being drafted into music. I didn't know I wanted to do it, but I was always around it, and it just kind of happened.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that the origins of NOCCA, and so when did NOCCA? When was it founded, and how long? But how long before it was founded that you were, as you mentioned, with Alvin Baptiste that group. How long before that was it founded, and you officially started to attend there?
Well, it was almost like I walked right into NOCCA after being involved with Alvin Batiste, because I was in 9th grade, and the next year, I guess it was forming at that time, because I think it was half of the school year in my 10th grade year, NOCCA was introduced.
Okay.
And they came to all of the high schools and presented the program to everybody. And the first thing I heard was, you get out of school at 12 o'clock.
There you go.
I didn't hear nothing else. I figured I'd get out of school early. That was enough for me.
Yeah, you're right.
But just so happened that the program was so strong. It started at UNO, on the UNO campus, with Bert Bro was I guess he was the only music teacher at that time, before we moved to Perrier Street, where we had, our official school.
Sure.
Our own building. And that's when Ellis Marsalis was presented to the program. Alvin Batiste was offered the job, but he was still teaching at Southern.
Right.
And from what I understand, he recommended Ellis for the job. And Ellis, took the job and started developing the program.
I'm curious, was Alvin living in New Orleans or Baton Rouge at the time?
He was still in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
Yeah. They would come down in the evening. It was an after-school program,
I got you. So you're in NOCCA now. So who were your peers? Who were your classmates, man?
Oh man, we had a great class, man. We had Stanley Stevenson was a drummer. Elton Heron was one of the bass players. Miles Wright was another bass player. Jonathan Bloom. Actually, Winton and Branford used to visit there all the time before they were students. So they used to play with us all the time. There was a few other guys, trying to remember everybody and picture everybody. Who was there? George Johnson was a trumpet player there. Keith Vanette was also
Keith Vanette.
Yeah. Keith Vanette. And then this other bass player's name was Thomas Usey. Daryl Shakowitz, who was a trumpet player. Dennis and Daryl were twins. There was some people that was there at the same time. Moses Hogan's was there, but he was in the classical. Yeah, he was in classical department.
Classical side, yeah.
He was a year ahead of us, so he was studying downstairs with Dr. Bro.
Very nice. So, man, one of the people that you mentioned a little while ago, I certainly have a connection through you with this giant, Mr. Henry Butler.
Oh man, yeah.
When did you guys first meet?
I met Henry Butler with Alvin Batiste's program.
Okay.
But Henry Butler was the vocal teacher at NOCCA when I was there.
Vocal?
Yeah, vocal music.
Wow.
And he was there at the same time with Ellis. So we had a great, we just didn't realize what we had, being students, we just didn't realize how much music and how much, the possibilities of development was sitting right there at our fingertips, of course, like all programs when you're students. Well, I'm not going to say that about everybody. Look at you. You took advantage of your stuff when you was in high school, but we played around a lot and then realized it, sort of when we was getting in the senior year.
Yeah.
How important it was, because we were all starting to play with people like James Black.
Yeah.
We played in Ellis Marsalis' band. We was playing in Henry Butler's band. We were playing with Alvin Batiste. Just all of the giants and Jermaine Basil, Edward Frank, Bob French, and all of these people. These bands were right there, waiting for us to develop, to become a part of it. I started subbing for Walter Payton. Elton also started doing that. You know, we were all kind of doing the same gigs, you know, based on the knowledge that we developed at that school.
And you mentioned one of the beautiful characteristics of the music community here in New Orleans with regard to having an opportunity based on the veterans taking the young cats under their wing.
Oh yeah,
having a chance to, you know, being open to sit in with them, you know, call them up to play in the bands. So, how old were you when you started? You know, because I recall a story you were talking about where you were in Snug Harbor before, you know, playing gigs on stage in Snug Harbor.
Yeah, it was called Faubourgs at that time.
Right.
I played at Lou and Charlie. So I mean, I was in funk bands when I was 14. By the time I was 15 and 16-ish, I was starting to play, you know, jazz gigs with, you know, with people like Alvin Batiste and, you know, Willie Metcalf.
Yeah.
Was a lot of guys who made it possible for us to be on the stage with them. I don't know if we were quite ready, but we had opportunities.
Right.
And we got a chance to see what it was and what we had to do.
Yeah.
You know, to prepare for that level.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, talking to Mr. Chris Severin on Talking Music. So what is the what are some of the lessons that you learned through working with the musicians on the scene at the time? What are some of those lessons that you learned from them to help you become a professional?
Well, Ellis Marsalis used to always say, don't worry about the gig. Worry about being ready when you get the call. And, you know, that stuck with me all my life, you know, just trying to be ready just in case.
Yeah.
You may never get the call, but I'll tell you what, when you get the calls and you're ready, you know, it makes you feel a whole lot better when you have to present what it is you're presenting in terms of being a musician and being ready versus I was in sessions in my life with Alan Toussaint. They had guys come in, you know, who weren't ready.
Right.
And I remember what he would say all the time. He would say, we're going to take a break right now. I'll never forget that. And we'll take 5 minutes. And that 5 minutes usually lasts about 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And when we came back in, there was somebody else rolling an amplifier or the guitar and plugging up, taking the guy's place who wasn't ready. And I used to always say to myself, I hope that never happened to me. The only way you could stop that from happening is being prepared. It's like Ellis, again, you know, don't worry about people calling you. Worry about being prepared when the phone rings.
There you go.
And that always stuck with me. And I always try to prepare myself for the things, you know, that I'm up against, you know, and luckily, you know, that, I mean, so far in my life, you know, I made it over the hoops, you know. So, and that's the thing that I remember most, you know, and, you know, being around people like Alvin Batiste and Kid Jordan.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, these are people who practiced all the time. All the guys that I was around, Herman Jackson, Julius Farmer, Walter Payton, Richard Payne, you know, these guys practiced all the time.
Yeah.
You know, so it kind of, you know, made you realize that nobody was exempt from, you know, not being prepared for whatever it is. You're never that good where you can say, okay, I'm on cruise control. You always got to practice, you know. I mean, I still practice. So, you know, I kind of adapted that thing from being around, you know, the senior musicians like Kid, you know, and Alvin and Ellis and, you know, just all of the people who's great, who we all admire.
That's right.
They all practice, and if they still playing, they still practice.
And man, you speak of those legends like Ellis and Kid. Kid is up there, and that still practices, at least a couple hours a day.
I got that. I bet you if you go by his house, that neck strap is around his neck, or he's got some instrument in his hand.
Yep.
Yeah,
And man, you mentioned about Henry Butler, just a piano and a vocal virtuoso. One of the things about piggybacking on being prepared, making sure you're prepared. I'll never forget when you were playing with him and you were introducing or telling Henry about me, and you gave me a call. Y'all were at Snug one night, and you gave me a call, and you told me, Clarence, what you doing? I'm like, nothing. Why don't you come on down to Snug tonight? Henry wants to hear you. I'm like, oh, okay. So I drove down there, and it was a second set. I was up on the balcony, and typically this is how special Henry was, man. This was a very unique cat, very intimidating.
Yeah.
So this is my first time hearing Henry up close. And I'm used to hearing a certain style when you talk about piano. Man, Henry was playing so percussive and so hard, and you felt the impact of his playing through your entire body, man. And I'm sitting there like, golly. So he went through this whole thing where he played Music Comes from the Depths of Sorrow. You remember that too.
Yeah, Music Came.
Music Came, yeah. And it was like, man, what is this, man? This is just something so striking and takes you back. And so I'll never forget, after that, he was playing Caravan. And I'm like, wow. I never heard Caravan, a Duke Ellington jazz standard, played so aggressive and so hard. It moved. I'm standing. I'm like, whoa. So, how typically cats invite you up on the stage. They stop the song and introducing them, whatever, and they in the middle of songs and like, well, we got a young man in the house who would like to see if he wants to, invite him on stage, come play. No, Henry didn't do that. That's what I was waiting for. Henry is in the middle of the intro to Caravan, just ripping it up. And all of a sudden, it's like, Clarence Johnson. Like, wait, what?
Yeah, after you
called my name again. Clarence Johnson. I'm like, wait, that must mean my home wasn't still in the case. So I had to hurry up, find a read, put it together. I'm like, golly, and he called it in. Clarence, I damn near tripped down the stairs trying to come down the stairs to the stage. And I finally made it on stage, and man, that tore my butt up, man, on being on that stage with y'all cats. It was you, Henry, and Herman.
Yeah.
Man, that was a test of fire right there. Good gracious. But
I went through the same thing. You got to remember that. I had to go through the same thing because these guys had been playing together forever. And I would go to rehearsal with Henry, and he would give me all this music lines everywhere. It wasn't the easiest stuff in the world to play.
Right.
You had to really practice all the time, to really play that stuff, Henry, and I used to practice it all the time, and it just looked like every time you got there, he would play it just a little faster.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, I understand. He didn't have the traditional approaches to anything, even being a band leader. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He would call you up after he didn't burn the stage up. Scare you half to death, and then call you up to play behind him.
Right. Like, what can I do after this, man? Wow.
Man, yeah, it's something else, Oh. I remember, man. I remember being in that same seat, and it was like, what do you do?
Right.
And I remember being when you got in the band, Henry would play songs, and he would just start playing.
Yeah.
You know.
He ain't say nothing. He
Nothing
just
at all.
going, and we would just follow along and figure it out. But those are the best gigs, man. That's how you truly learn.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's different now from those times because I think he learned those concepts from Alvin Baptiste. Alvin Baptiste would have you practice all of this music, and when you get there, he say, "Hey man, look, that's cool, man. I'm glad you got that together, but we're not gonna play it like that tonight." And it's like, wow, it's a whole new thing. I remember being in the band with when Henry left, he was doing his own thing.
Sure.
Alvin Baptiste used Emile Vanette. He was another one of those kind of musicians. It seemed like he never played any wrong notes.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing that he played sounded like it was conflicted with anything else.
Right.
I never understood that. I never understood that concept. How do you play whatever you want to play and everything works?
Yeah.
But that convinced me in music, that everything works.
Right.
It's just a matter of how you approach it, how you resolve it, how you use it. And Emile Vanette, he taught me that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I first met you, that's you were in the middle of your stint with the one and only Miss Diane Reeves.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And we're talking with Mr. Chris Severin live on Talking Music. So why don't you tell us about that experience working with Miss Reeves and what your role was in the band as a bass player, as a musician, all of those things. How was that?
First of all, David Tarkanowski presented that gig to me.
Yeah.
Of course, when somebody offer you a gig like that, I was used to working with cats like Henry and
sure.
I worked with a lot of singers, in my life, like BJ,
yeah,
Lady BJ, Jermaine Basil. I had great teachers to prepare me for that kind of thing, but Diane she had a whole lot of different stuff going on, and of course, like I said, the music was presented to me in advance, so I had a chance to really work on it, and I worked on it every day, getting ready for any other gig. And, coming into LA, it was a brand new band. You didn't know anybody. I only knew David Tarkanowski. The band was Billy Kilson. Luis Conti.
Mm-hmm.
There was, of course, David and myself. And at that time, we had sequences, we had click tracks, we were locking into. All of this stuff was brand new stuff,
And you and Dave were the only ones from New Orleans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, we played the first couple of notes, on Better Days, because that was a funk part of the gig that we were introduced to.
Right.
And after she came to rehearsal late, gave us some time, I guess, to be ready for when she came in, and then she started just calling tunes. And when David counted the tune off, Billy went with that that LA thing, boom, bang.
Yep.
And when she heard that, she was cool. She was relaxed for that gig, because she's, the band had that whole funk understanding.
That's right.
It wasn't like some of the other guys that was working with her, where they were straight ahead cats, and not that they couldn't play that music. I just don't think they had the same kind of respect for it that we had. So we tried to play, we tried to play things exactly like the records. I mean, I remember writing all of my parts out, note for note.
Yep.
So I could be prepared, because David used to say, all LA cats, man, they play stuff exactly like the records.
Right.
So I wanted to be prepared for that. and I worked towards that. And when she heard that, you know, she was happy with what she heard. You know, it was a bunch of guys from different places. Wasn't all LA cats. It wasn't all New York cats.
Yeah.
You know, we was scattered, but we had a sound like we had been playing together.
Awesome. Awesome.
You know, and then she had some jazz gigs come up, so she went to David. She said, okay, because she was used to using 2 bands.
Yeah.
She said, well, you know, I got to get me an upright player, and I got to get me a jazz drummer, and I got to get this, and I got to get that, because it's kind of like I need my trio to be, you know, a real jazz trio.
Right.
And David said, well, you know, he plays upright, and, you know, Billy, he can swing, man. These guys can, you know, I guess he sold the package.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
You know, so we got like the next gig we had, you know, she had the upright, you know, ship. You know, at that time you can travel with your bass, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I had my own bass, you know, the big flight case and all the crazy stuff. You know. We showed up. When we started playing some straight ahead tunes, and she like, oh, you know, these guys know how to play both things. So, I mean, she wasn't used to having that inside of one band. So the band became a straight ahead funk band all the time. Everywhere we went, you know, I had upright. I was playing fretless, upright, and, you know, just a regular fretted bass. You know, when she saw that we could do that, she wanted that all the time.
Hey man, let me interrupt you right here. There's a great comment coming into us from Facebook, man.
I see it, man.
It's coming from your boy, man, Leon Alexander. Says Chris has to be one of the biggest influences on me as a drummer and percussionist. To this day, I am still influenced by his musicianship. I am always humbled to have had the chance to play with him and Clarence. Outstanding human beings. Leon, you all right, bro?
Oh man, go ahead, man. I mean, when we first played together, man, you fired it up so much. It's like, whoa, man. You know, who is this guy? You know?
Yeah, bro. I think he was. I know we first met. He was playing at the Royal Semester with Johnny Boschman Trio with Richard Moten.
Okay. You know, I did that gig with her. Harlan and I was with Johnny Bashman together.
Wow, that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
And so I don't remember the exact first gig that you and Leon did together, but I think it was one of my sets, one of my shows.
Yeah.
Maybe Snug or something, but yeah, man, it was one I had. Because, you know, for a horn player or for anybody for that matter, when you have that right rhythm section, just like Diane Reeves you were talking about, when you can find that cohesive rhythm section that gives you the bed of comfort, you can do anything you want to do. And she found that in you, Dave, and Billy Kilson. So that's kind of what we were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, man, the first time I heard Leon play that go-go beat, I'm like, oh man, you know, because and then again, Billy was from DC, so that's where I was introduced to that.
Right.
You know, and then I heard Leon play because I had never heard anybody else play like that.
Right.
But these two guys, you know, with that, you know, that heavy Chuck Brown foot, you know, pushing the band. You know, the band never felt lazy. The band was always on that edge. I always felt like playing with Leon. He was always ready to play.
That's
like,
right.
You know, it's like when you snap the ball in football. Yeah. You know, when you got, or even, you know, making the Christmas tree at a racetrack with race car. Yeah. It had that kind of energy, you know. Yeah. It never, you know, it never felt tired. If I was tired when I got to the gig, when Leon played, I was up. I was tired when I got home, but you know, after all of that fire. But yeah, man, it's always a pleasure to play with you, Leon, man.
And it's funny you bring up Christmas. That was the last gig we all did together. With that group was the Christmas show. Yeah. My Christmas show at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage, the George Wayne Center.
Yeah, that was Christmas music, but
Yeah.
that was Christmas jazz with all kind of that was some difficult music. Everybody felt like that. We got it together pretty fast.
We did, man. And I mean, that's my fault because I wanted to call more than one rehearsal. That wasn't fair to you guys to try to, get all that one rehearsal.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't fair. Steve Masakowski was on that gig too, right?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, everybody felt the same way. All these great musicians. And man, look at this.
But it was cool, though, man. It was cool, man. Yes, indeed. One story that I remember, man, you telling me, it was one of my, hey, cousin Sylvia, how's it going? Was the story behind the arrangement of her, what was it? Oh, man. Love for Sale.
Oh, yeah.
I love the story.
Now, what happened with that was, man, we were playing that. We were at Nexus, the trio that we had at Nexus with David.
On Reed Boulevard, yep.
Yeah, and
not Reed. Elysian Fields.
Robert E. Lee and Elysian Fields.
Elysian Fields, yeah.
And Julian Garcia was in the band. At that time, Julian put that band together.
Julian Garcia, great drummer.
Yeah. And I was working with my equipment, just trying to get my sound together. And Jeffrey Osborne, LTD tune came on.
Mm-hmm.
Ding, 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 ding. Ding, 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 ding.
Oh, yeah.
And it just happened to be in the same key. So when we got up on the stage, my break, of course, I used it up, trying to get my equipment ready for the next set. They called Love for Sale.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in that key. So I played that bass line.
Yeah.
And that's how that got started.
I'll be doggone.
Of course, I mean, Diane didn't know where it came from. So David got the credit for that. But that's how that came about.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Frankie Beverly did the same thing with Back in Stride again.
That's right.
But that's where that line came from. And then Billy was playing it real fast, what I said?
Yeah. Yep.
And these things that we did with Diane, a lot of times we just surprised her on the stage, and she just responded to it.
Wow.
When the band first got together, we used to rehearse all the time. We would rehearse in the hotel because David would have his MIDI system, his keyboard. We would plug into a console.
Mm-hmm.
We had headphones, and Billy would, play on top the little trash can in there, and we would rehearse all of this stuff, and then we would just come out on the stage and just do it. Don't even tell her. She was that spontaneous, man, where she could just respond to whatever it was we were doing. She was that musical, yeah.
That's when you're secure in your level of musicianship.
Yeah, she would never turn around and look at us and say, "What is that y'all doing? Don't do that anymore." Oh, I like that. She would always go with it and respond to it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was really a fun band. That was one great experience for me playing in that band.
Yeah,
Billy and I still talk about that when we talk on the phone with about different things. He used some of those concepts in his teaching at Berkeley. And whenever I think we all do a little bit of that. I always present him in more than one style of music. A lot of times, I'll talk about him in the funk idiom, but I always tell the cats, man, you got to check this cat out on some straight ahead stuff, man. He's really all the way around the board. He's an awesome musician,
Nice.
Yeah. Nice. And like I said, he's got that same edge.
Yep.
That same thing that I don't know if it's a DC thing or what, but it's kind of like what we have down here. The drummers, all the drummers ever played without a DC, They got that thing, you know.
Yep. That's what's up, man. So, man, I mean, your career spans working with so many of the greats around the world. We just talked about Diane Reeves, talked about earlier Ellis, Henry Butler, and man, certainly one of the things that I remember as far as a highlight for me seeing you with the band was you, man, the last band that was performing with Mr. somebody we mentioned before, Alan Toussaint.
Yeah. I was on the last tour with him. That was something else to be out there, you know, and that took place. I remember him when I got the call to do that date. Allison asked me. She said, "You know, my dad wanted to know if you would play this gig with us." I said, "Sure, I would be glad to." You know, and the funny thing about him was, he and I spent some time, you know, in my studio listening to the music that I put together, and you know, he gave me some great advice on the music and different production ideas, and I still use all of that stuff today. Matter of fact, you know, when I'm working on projects, you know, his pictures, his Jazz Fest posters on the wall.
Yeah,
and it's signed, and you know, a lot of pictures of him is in my studio on the wall. Some of the last gigs that we did, and when we were in Europe, the people, they shot these pictures, man, and by the time we were finished the gig, they were posters. You know, by the time we got off and finished up, so they gave us all of these posters of the performance.
Wow.
So I have that, you know, that we did 2 more gigs after that before, you know, the tragic tragedy took place, you know. But anyway, that was a great experience. It's a great learning experience for me working with him. It goes back to, you never really understand it until it's not there anymore, you know. He would say things and I would say, man, what is he talking about? And then now that I go back, whenever I'm doing something, you know, all of these things that he used to say just ring my head. You know, about, you know, just doing things on a certain level. You know, I had gotten to the point where, you know, you start getting lazy about going to rehearsals, and you know, but when you get on that gig and it falls, slap you in your face, it makes you realize how important it is just to, you know, live with the music, like Alan used to say. You know, the music is not living. Maybe you should live with it. And I could never understand that when I first got with it. But as time went on, you know, when you get on the stage and you spend time with that music, you feel so confident and so free.
Right.
You know, you can do whatever it is you want to do, you know, and be comfortable. You know, everybody's not like Clarence Johnson, who could hear anything, to hear the cracks in the wall and all that kind of stuff, and who can remember stuff from, I'll never forget when you said, man, right here, you played this thing in a tune, was somewhere where we played. I said, man, I don't remember that. I said, how long ago was that? It was 10 years ago. I think, Clarence, you the only one can remember what everybody played 10 years ago. There's only one other person that I know like that, you know, and his name is Darryl Winchester. They call him Prime.
Oh, yeah, you were telling me about him.
Yeah, he's one of the people like that. You know, he can remember stuff that you did, you know.
That's all right, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Clarence Johnson here, and we are talking music with great bassist Chris Severin. You know, you mentioned all of these things about learning and to apply it to your craft. I got to tell you, all the times that we spent on different gigs and stages and tours and just talking about things on the phone, or whether we halfway around the world in Romania somewhere, which we were.
Yeah.
I tell you, I've learned so much from you on how to be a professional, and particularly on how to effectively conduct recording sessions just by hanging out with you and talking with you, to the point to where I was able to produce my own recording session about 10 years ago, which I was very happy to have you be a part of. You played about 3 or so tracks on my Watch and Work CD. So, those are the types of things that, I learned with regard to music, getting the music together, producing, when you have something in your head, to bring that vision, bring whatever you're hearing to life. And with regard to all of the technical things, with regard to the actual engineering and the mic production and mic qualities, studio setup. I've worked in your studio quite a few times. The Music Shed studio that we use for that recording. It was such a great experience, and I owe a lot of what transpired in that session to things that I've learned from you, just watching you and hanging out with you over the years.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what, something else that I learned about, being in a situation like that is we as side men, even though you have a lot of experience in your life, and I have a few things I've done, but I know how to be a side man, and I know how to keep my mouth shut and let the music manifest, let it be what it's going to be, and let the guy who's in charge, give him the opportunity to let his vision live. Here again, that's some Alan Toussaint wisdom. If you don't allow it to happen, you don't know what that what it could be, from a musical perspective. So for me, I've learned how to just keep my mouth shut and listen.
You're right.
If I'm asked, then I'll give some of the advice that I think that will make things move smoothly. But for the most part, I think being quiet in a session or when somebody's running a band and allowing their thoughts and their ideas to manifest is very important.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's interrupted when we all have a lot to say because of our experiences, in music.
Right.
But I think that's something that a lot of us we need to learn, because in places like Los Angeles and New York, I've been on the stage and in the studio with some great cats. I was in the studio with Harvey Mason, with Terrance Blanchard, and a lot of other big name people, right? And those guys sat there and didn't open their mouth. They let the producer produce.
Yeah.
Let the conductor conduct.
Right.
They let the band leader be the band leader.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you see those kind of differences in music and those kind of results, because you don't want to kill a great idea before before it's even born. You know what I mean? By having all of these ideas about what somebody else should do,
Right.
And I think you should do this. Maybe so, but I want to hear what you think you need to be doing.
That's right.
Before, the whole idea is influenced by, somebody saying, well, man, what would be cool? Yeah, that would be cool. But let's see what this is before.
Right.
Because I've been on sessions like, again, here's Alan again, we're in the studio tracking. And before we play one note, I hear some cats, with their jazz understanding. Man, what would be hip, man, if we had a 2-5 here and a 2-5 there? And Alan would say, well, I remember him asking me, he said, well, Chris, what do you think?
I remember these stories.
Yeah, I said,
stories.
I think we ought to play the music like you wrote it.
Yep.
And if there's some changes need to be made, then I think you should be the cat who make those decisions, not us. I don't know how many other guys in this room has got over 40 gold records. So I mean, to me, you know, that's enough for me to keep my mouth shut in any situation and listen and learn. And because I did that and paid attention, you know, it taught me some things about working in the studio, and they're pretty handy.
There you go. In closing, Chris Severin, you know, the great thing about this is, you know, knowing that you have about what, 3 or so decades in education, in music education.
Yeah.
And it's more than just teaching students how to play their instrument, the pedagogy of their instrument and the technique and all that. It's about how to apply all of this in the professional music world, the professional music setting. So the great thing about this is we are certainly getting a glimpse on the other things, the other side of the music business that you have a chance to impart on our young aspiring musicians, being an esteemed faculty member at such places as NOCCA and the Satchmo Summer Jazz Camp.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's important that, you know, that people understand how it really works and how the real world is, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you have these ideas about the way you think it is and how the business works, and some of that's straight up and true, but a lot of it is different from what you think it is. You know, the experiences that you come across, you know, it's some real life experiences that you're not going to find in a book.
There you go.
You know, and it's all modified based on who you playing with, you know, and how you handle yourself in terms of that. I remember my daddy used to say to us all the time, before all of these things that you do, you have to be a man first. You have to do man respect. You give respect, you know, so you should receive respect. And if you're not, then you should speak up on that and, you know, let people know, you know, man, I respect you, and I appreciate everything you've done.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're going to also respect me and speak to me with respect.
Exactly.
And everybody will be happy. So that's one thing that I tell all my students, you know, you know, make sure that whatever situation you're in, you respect the people that you're working for, and you demand that they respect you. You know, and you don't have to be disrespectful. And if it's a situation where the people feel like they can't respect you, then I don't think that's a place you need to be.
There you go. There you go. Awesome, man. Great words to wrap up. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been talking with the great Chris Severin. And I'd like to thank you for hanging out with us this evening on Talking Music. And be sure to keep up with Chris. He's everywhere, whether it's in the form of him playing with anybody, or he's playing with his own project, which he's actually working on some things that'll be out pretty soon. We'll still continue to do some things together. I got some more things coming out he'll be working with me on. So we're definitely going to be around. So look for us. And until the next episode of Talking Music, this is Clarence Johnson III signing off. You guys be blessed, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, you're right.
All right.